Hey guys, Apotheosis here again. Welcome back to another video. Today I finally decided and was compelled to create a dimensional slate guide for everyone. This is going to be a step-by-step process for you to follow to fully unlock a dimensional slate for an Elune of your choosing in an efficient manner that's going to save you Elune lights, Elune seeds, and most importantly, altar stones. Okay, basically everyone that's been doing things the way that's been communicated in Discord or other means of information, however you decide to get that information, do not follow that. This process alone will save you 50 altar stones. Okay, and if you know how precious altar stones are, then you should understand the importance of understanding this process and watching this video. And to start this video off, I actually need to begin with an apology directed at you guys as a community in terms of why it took so long for such important information to come out. And I'm asking for you to please understand my perspective as a content creator and take a look at the direction my content has taken and the focus it has on you guys as a community. I need to heavily weigh the pros and cons of releasing a guide like this that becomes heavily or easily exploitable by whales and could cause a large shift in the meta that you guys just aren't ready for or could affect the quality of your gameplay. But because of the whale meta that has already developed since the release of the Dimensional Slate, together with the misinformation that's currently floating around that's impacting people's decision to spend these materials that are way too precious to spend before you understand this mechanic, that makes this video more and more necessary, and I apologize for it taking this long, and I hope that you guys can understand my perspective. Now, before we move into the meat and potatoes of that step-by-step process that I've laid out for you guys, there's a giant disclaimer that I need to put up front in terms of gaining speed from your right bonus column. If this is something that your Elune needs, you need to do this first before moving into that step-by-step process. We're not including that in my process because of how inaccessible it is to the vast majority of players. Now, I'm asking you, please don't shoot the messenger here. Don't dislike the video over this information. Chances are I'm opening your eyes to this existing. This is the meta that exists in high-end PvP right now because you don't need an astronomical number of attack to kill something on the other side. It's much different than a PvE oriented or focused slate where you are pushing extreme numbers when it comes to attack. I think your biggest focus in PvP is going to be attack speed, and then you're looking at HP and defense stats in here together with a balance of attack so that you can do some damage on the other side. But because attack speed is so limited in this game, whales are just whaling out over here. You can roll 15 to 30 speed from your right bonus column, and like I said, the inaccessibility is its cost of 10 altar stones per roll, and you're rolling with a 20% chance to even land speed. And then you're not guaranteed a rarity, so this rarity can roll from 3 speed to 6 speed. So that's where the 15 to 30 comes in, and it's just not accessible with the access to altar stones that we have right now. And don't get discouraged either. Chances are that we will gain more access to altar stones as this game develops, or we will gain more access to speed on higher rolls from gear that drops from 13 to 15 tier dungeons. For now, this is what exists, and again, don't shoot the messenger. I'm just opening your eyes to this, and it becomes very important in terms of your Elune selection and your expectations when it comes to your dimensional slate. So please, I know people's gut reaction is I'm going to take a dimensional slate guide, I'm going to grab my Arslan, I'm going to slate him, and then I'm going to dominate in PvP. If you don't have access to this, you know, you're not going first, and the person that is probably going to win in the meta that exists right now. I'm so sorry about this. But we can move on to the step-by-step process. I just needed to talk about that before a lot of people just waste a lot of resources on their Arslan or their Trent without taking care of this first and then realizing that this is what they're facing on the opposite side later. Now, to get everyone on the same page, I will explain the basic mechanics of Dimensional Slate. So we have keystones, and a key is used to unlock something. We have 10 keystones to unlock anything in the first row, and that cost will increase by 10 for every row descending this grid, until it costs 50 keystones per slot in the 5th row. Keystones are also used to unlock the bonus row on the right, and these will become unlockable after every slot in the row to the left of it is unlocked, and then when unlocked, it will roll a stat that is to the left of it. So we can control the RNG of this being something that we want by controlling what is to the left of it. And we're going to talk about that in our reroll process, but you are still playing with RNG because of the rarity being completely random. We're not controlling the rarity. Next we have boost stones. So a boost stone is used to enhance or upgrade a stat roll to a higher tier. So this has a 40% chance to upgrade to epic. And then from epic, it has a 20% chance to upgrade to legendary. So this is the first way that we're going to gain access to more legendary rolls inside of our 5x5 grid by using boost stones to enhance that roll. When we fail this enhance chance, we lose 1 durability. We start with 5, and every time we fail, we decrease until we end up at 0. And at 0, we can no longer attempt the enhance chance. But we can refresh that by using altar stones. So an altar stone will change the stats inside of the 5x5 grid by using this option. Everything will be re-rolled unless we lock it with a permastone. So a permastone makes something permanent, and these stats will not be re-rolled and they will retain their durability. Everything that wasn't locked will re-roll the stat and refresh that durability, giving us more chances to gain legendary stats inside of our 5x5, which we're going to do with our reroll process. Now, altar stones are also used to reroll the stats on the right, and this will cost 10 altar stones every time. It is much more efficient to use 10 altar stones on this slot because it is our favorite slot. This is a completely random stat, just like these will be. It is guaranteed to be legendary, and it is 8 times the legendary roll of anything inside the 5x5 grid. So we want to make sure we have enough altar stones to re-roll this column. It is a very efficient row. It isn't a very efficient slot that we want to take advantage of. For comparison, the slots in this column here are 200% or 2 times any legendary roll here when this rolls legendary. And when these roll legendary, it is 4 times any legendary roll inside our 5x5 grid. So this is by far our favorite slot. This row right here is very hard to control. It is completely RNG and it's limited by our access to level 60 dupes. So you will unlock this row by using a level 60 dupe. It will roll a completely random stat, completely random rarity, and it's really re-rolls down here are really just limited by our access to level 60 dupes. There's not a lot of min-maxing to be done there, but we're going to look at min-maxing legendary rolls inside of here, min-maxing this legendary roll, and then last we're going to look at min-maxing this. And now finally moving into that step-by-step process, we have step 1 is to unlock every single square in our 5x5 grid. Do not touch this row right now. We will do that later. Right now we unlock everything in our 5x5 regardless of the cost, regardless of the stat. Unlock it. You can unlock any of these bonus slots in the bottom row because this is completely RNG as we previously mentioned. We will need this completely unlocked for step 5, but for now you can unlock these whenever in this process. Step 1, unlock every single one of these slots.
750 keystones later.
Next, you need to decide on a stat priority for your Elune. If speed is your first priority, make sure that you saw my disclaimer at the start. If you skipped it, go back and watch it before moving forward. I will be focusing on attack power on this specific PvE dimensional slate, with crit rate and crit power coming in at a close second place, but we will talk about stats and Elunes at the end of this video. Step 2 is to enhance any slot that has your primary stat on it. Use boost stones until it hits either legendary or until it hits 0 durability. Then re-roll that 5x5 grid using permastones to lock those good stats and altar stones to re-roll the grid. Repeat this process until you have fished for 9 locked epic to legendary main stats. Now, how picky you are regarding the value of 9 legendary stats versus having some epic rolls locked is your choice and should be weighted against that invested cost of re-rolling, considering you will need altar stones later on in this process. Also, understand that you can't really go back on this decision after you decide to upgrade everything in the 5x5 outside of those 9 locked slots. That's going to be at the end of step 3. Now, during this process, you have a couple of very important goals. So number 1, and probably the most important part of this video, if you share anything with your friends, share this. With every reroll in this process, consider, should I unlock a bonus slot on the right? For example, if I have a row with 4 attack slots and 1 crit rate slot, I should unlock that bonus slot to the right before rerolling that grid, because I am guaranteed a stat that I want, and I have a very high chance to land my number 1 priority stat. This alone will save you so many altar stones because it costs 10 altar stones to reroll that stat on the right. You are basically trading 5 keystones for 10 or more altar stones when you control the RNG of unlocking this slot. We have 3 more goals that you do want to keep in mind. Number 2, at the very least, you want one of your main stat in every row. Either now or before finishing step 3, this will allow you to hit it when you do unlock it, or spend altar stones later down the road to get you that high priority stat. Number 3, prioritize locking high rolled main stats slots that are further down the grid due to the cost of enhancing these slots. Doing this will save you a decent amount of boost stones in this reroll process. Number 4, ignore your speed slot here. Locking it is actually a trap. Since we are guaranteed a speed slot on every reroll, we are essentially given a free 10th permastone locked slot every time that we reroll in terms of controlling RNG of good stats to spawn on our 5x5 grid. You can care about the rarity of the roll at the end of step 3. For step 3, now that you have decided on 9 locked stats that you will take with you into the final enhancement, take inventory of how many of the remaining 15 slots have stats that you want. Is it 5 out of 15? Can you increase that with a further reroll? Your rerolls in this step are aimed at bringing that number as close to 15 out of 15 as you can get. Consider the odds of getting a better slate before every reroll. You can enhance these 15 slots up to help you decide based off of the rarities that they end up rolling, but this will waste boost stones every time you decide to re-roll it after enhancing. Now, this is the end of step 3 and your 5x5 grid reroll. You can enhance these remaining slots anywhere in the remaining process after you have decided on a 5x5 grid that works for you. For step 4, unlock any of your remaining bonus slots on that bottom or on the right column. Following the goals that I listed in step 2, you should have some of these unlocked with good stats already. We will re-roll the stats later, but for now we need them unlocked to open our bottom right bonus slot. After you have unlocked our favorite slot, re-roll using 10 altar stones until you hit a stat that you want. Consider how many altar stones you have remaining to spend here, and remember that this is 4 times the roll of any bonus slot above it, and 8 times the roll of any slot in the 5x5 grid. So it is a high priority for any remaining altar stones. Step 5, re-roll the remaining bonus slots as you gain altar stones to spend on the RNG of re-rolling them, or level 60 dupes to re-roll those bottom bonus slots. Now when all is said and done, this should translate to a very efficient slate, and we used the least amount of precious resources possible. Now to transition into a brief discussion on which Elunes you want to invest in Dimensional Slate, or what your stat priority should be for each individual slate process. This is a bit of a critical thinking process you're going to have to go through on your own, and I will just give you the same advice that you'll see in a lot of my videos. Number 1, is it going to benefit your progression, right? Is this investment of resources, which we are extremely limited in who we can invest in, as it is a long-term end game mechanic that we will be playing with for years to come. Is this someone that's going to benefit you now? And if it's not, you can still make that decision. Is it going to bring me fun in this game, right? I chose to slate Artemil because obviously you can tell from my channel's branding, I'm a very big fan of the Archangel archetype. So I'm a big fan of Artemil being introduced to the game, and I had fun with his dimensional slate, right? He's not necessarily going to bring me any progression in PvE or PvP, PvE, either side of the game, but I have fun with him, so I invested in his dimensional slate. Otherwise, I invested in Kang Rim because of his progression in PvE is huge. I mean, the capabilities, I hit for 5.7 million on an Alliance boss. I can one-shot PvE bosses in the current state of the PvE content. So, I felt that investment was worthy there. Then Caroline, I invested in Caroline's dimensional slate because of how efficient her dimensional slate is, how easy it is, and how much less resources you can use when you convert physical defense and magic defense straight into attack power as part of her passive. And compared to gear, dimensional slate rolls the same number. So you can get 500 for magic defense, the same as you can get 500 attack on the inside of a dimensional slate. Compared to gear, defense stats roll lower than attack stats. So it becomes just a very efficient way of dimensional slating somebody, but you also have to weigh that with, am I going to use Caroline in any given content? I do use Caroline. Not necessarily everyone will use her. She is benched for a lot of people. So just because she's efficient doesn't make her a guaranteed I should slate this person. For me, it just became beneficial and a decision that I made for myself. And then Caroline also becomes an excellent discussion in stat priority because normally when I'm going to, in my theory crafting, when I'm scaling damage, looking at something like Kang Rim's attack scaling on his S3 or Caroline's attack scaling on her S2. These things scale straight off of base attack. So I am already gaining, from Kang Rim's S3, like 400% attack power. That's huge scaling. Then Kang Rim even benefits even more from base attack by doubling his damage against targets that are insta-kill immune. So to me, it's a lot easier to scale damage using base attack than something like going for a full-on crit rate or crit damage dimensional slate, because of how inefficient it is in translating that to damage. If I have someone who's multiplying my crit power as part of their kit, then that becomes more of a discussion to I should invest in crit power. Or something like Caroline, who will not benefit from crit buffs that we bring, like Karu or Miho. She's just not going to gain those crit rate buffs, so maybe you want to invest more into base crit rate for Caroline than you would another Elune. Again, that's a decision that's up to you and how you want to scale your Elune's damage. It really is a complicated discussion and on an Elune by Elune basis. So I wish I could help you out more in that discussion. It really is up to you. I will try to shed some light on this more if I can, but I hope that is sufficient in giving you a decent start at picking a stat priority for whichever Elune you decide to invest in your slate. And to wrap up discussion on which Elunes you should be investing in dimensional slate, there is a very important discussion we need to have about investing in an epic Elune versus a legendary Elune. It is very hard to invest in an epic Elune at the moment because you are limited in your rolls by the rarity of the Elune that you're using the slate on. So an epic Elune cannot roll a legendary stat roll. And I'm going to include Zadrock's graphic that breaks this down very simply for everybody. You can see that epic Elunes only gain about 20% of a maximum roll that a legendary will have, and that's for every box inside of the 5x5 grid. Which is a very bad place for epics to be in, just also exacerbated by the fact that it costs the same amount of resources to unlock that as it does for a legendary. Now, if it was cheaper, that could offset some of that handicap, but with the handicap and the cost together, do not invest in epics right now unless you absolutely need to for some reason in your progression. Focus on spending your resources on legendaries in the current state of the game. A lot of this stuff could change in the future. This is a new meta that has developed and it's very young. We don't know the creative direction that the devs are going to take in its full effect yet. There is a very big chance that the gear that drops from the tier 13 to 15 boss battles has higher stat rolls to counteract some of this imbalance that exists right now, because slate will not scale upwards, whereas our gear attained from boss battles should. where I'm guessing that's what's going to happen. And then we have, if we gain more access to altar stones, then this disparity becomes less of an effective meta. So that together with balancing epics versus legendaries. So I have pushed my feedback forward in the channels that I have available to me, and I'm asking for these changes to come as part of the developing game that we all choose and enjoy to play. So I will continue to advocate for you guys, and I hope you guys appreciated this video. Just know that I appreciate you guys, and seriously, especially if you made it to this point in the video, mahalo nui loa for all of your support and your continued support. I mean, I started this channel with no subscribers, and we're approaching 500 and just continue to grow every day and every week. So thank you so much to all of you. All right, and with that, I'm signing off. Until the next guide, take care, guys.